1942. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi regime are at the height of their campaign, and the German people are right behind them. But at the University of Munich, 6 students would come together and form the White Rose Movement, an anti-Nazi resistance group that would openly oppose the Third Reich through anonymous leaflets and other non-violent acts of defiance. Before long, the Nazi leaders uncovered this resistance. They could not acquiesce public nor private aversion of the Führer. The Gestapo hunted those involved and the leaders to put an end to the rebellion.
It was an amazing campaign. These young people were just regular, everyday young people, just like you see every day, and they decided to make a stand. During the war, at the height of the war, in the 1940s, the bravery was just beyond comparison. They could see that this evil regime had risen up over the last 15 years and it was controlling everything about everybody's lives, and they decided to make a stand, and it was just an amazing thing to see these teenagers just doing simple things like the graffiti and handing out the leaflets and making a stand and just making people aware of what this regime was actually doing into people's lives. They were just teaching people to hate, and they were standing up against that and against everything that the regime stood for. Of course, the regime, in one sense, won. But did they really win? Do you ever really crush any kind of movement like that? Once the cat has been let out of the bag, once people are aware, then they start to understand what's going on and they start to make a stand against it. So yes, the movement was crushed by the Gestapo, by the secret police. They came and they took them away, but they made a stand, and still 60 years later people remember them and people know what they did. So was it a failure? I don't think it was a failure. If you make a stand against anything, well, you might lose a battle, but you certainly don't lose the war.
There were 6 key members, and those key members, 2 of them were a brother and sister. It was Hans and Sophia. They were at the University of Munich. They were following their philosophy professor. He began to make their faith the reality, and he was taking his information from a sermon that he had heard. They were all from families of Christian background. They could watch these atrocities happening to people, to their own people, and even to the Jews as well. And I think that's when the rubber hit the road for them, and when they began to make these leaflets. And we know that before they were able to distribute the last leaflet, they were all arrested and decapitated, and that was in 1943. And of course, being college-age students, their desire was to reach their generation and those below. They understood that there was great influence and great power, and really reaching your generation, because your generation will one day be the leaders, and they're going to set policy, and they're going to set the standard. And they saw, just like Plato had said earlier, if I don't reach this generation, then the future ones are lost.